great celestial dragon. My friend, what do you know of the sayings of Confucius and how they might be applied to our modern age?
Speak your questions, my friend, and I will tell you what I know.
Is it not pleasant to learn and to practice what one has learned? Is it not delightful to have friends visit from afar? Is he not a man of complete virtue who feels no discomposure, though others take no note of him?
I always remember this phrase when I have family and old friends visit me from somewhere far away. The theme of the virtue of not resenting it when others do not recognize your qualities is prevalent in Confucius's sayings, since it was only the students of his philosophy, hundreds of years later, who were able to achieve his goals.
The master said, "A wise man never goes on eating until he cannot eat anymore. He is diligent in business and cautious in speech. He associates with those who possess the way, and thereby corrects his own faults. Such a one may indeed be said to have a taste for learning."
By learning, he means learning the philosophy taught by Confucius. The philosophy taught by Confucius regards recognizing and pursuing the meaning of life and the means to building a harmonious society.
The master said, "At 15, I set my heart upon learning. At 30, I stood firm. At 40, I had no doubts. At 50, I knew the commands of heaven. At 60, I heard them with a receptive ear. At 70, I could follow the dictates of my heart. For what I desired no longer overstepped the boundaries of what is right."
By this, Confucius is saying that the highest form of self-cultivation is when a person does not even desire in their heart to do what is not right.
The master said, "He who by applying his knowledge of the past is able to interpret what is new is truly fit to be a teacher."
As a teacher myself, I often reflect on this. Even 300 years before the Han Dynasty began, Confucius knew that memorization was the lowest form of learning. If you are teaching a student something, and they cannot apply what they learn to understand their own world better in some way, everything you have taught them is meaningless.
The master said, "A wise man is not a tool."
A man of virtue must have his own goals and be conscious of when the goals of others contradict them. If you aspire to be a man of virtue, then you must work with others to do good in the world, but do not allow yourself to be used.
The master said, "You shall I teach you what true knowledge is. When you know a thing, to recognize that you know it, and when you do not know a thing, to recognize that you do not know it. That is knowledge."
You must recognize your own limitations in addition to your strengths. If you know where you are lacking, you can choose in what direction to grow. If you are aware of your own shortcomings, you can avoid situations in which relying on those faults may lead you into failure.
The master said, "I do not see what use a man can be put to, whose word cannot be trusted. How can a wagon be made to go if it has no yoke bar, or a carriage if it has no collar bar?"
Don't rely on people who are dishonest and cannot be trusted. The more you depend on undependable people for your own well-being, the more you are opening yourself up to suffering. Reflect on this when you are looking for a husband or a wife. If someone deceives you, and you have not yet committed yourself past the point of no return, run.
The master said, "High office filled by men of narrow views, ritual performance without reverence, and mourning performed without grief. These are things I cannot bear to see."
Even 300 years before the Han Dynasty, Confucius knew how damaging it was to society when those in power were narrow-minded, emotionally unconcerned with the welfare of the people, and who hated the culture of their ancestors.
The beauty of a community comes from the benevolence of its people. If a man finds a place where benevolence is found, and yet still does not desire to live there, how can he be called wise?
This saying has two different levels of meaning. On the surface, what it says is true. If you can choose a place to live, a wise man will choose a place where the people have a beautiful and virtuous nature. That is why I always miss Taiwan. At a deeper level, Confucius is talking about how a truly wise person would inevitably choose to return to their original nature, their bunshing, which Confucius knew to be innately good.
The master said, "He whose heart is in the smallest degree set upon benevolence will dislike no one."
Confucius knew that liking a person and liking their behavior were two completely different things. By recognizing that a person's behavior is bad while recognizing that all people have the capacity to do good, one can better assist others in their own path of self-cultivation.
The master said, "If you hear the way in the morning, in the evening, you can die content."
Once you understand the meaning of life, your anxiety about the circumstances of the world will diminish. You can live best by aligning your life with its purpose and find contentment in knowing that you are doing all you can to pursue it.
The master said, "The wise man is concerned with what is just, while the small man is concerned with what will profit him."
Confucius also said that the best way to know the character of a person was to recognize what they desired, how they pursued those desires, and what brought them contentment. Do those around you pursue what is just, or are they only interested in their own selfish benefit? You must recognize the character of those around you and manage your relationships accordingly.
Ziyu said, "In the service of one's prince, repeated scolding can only lead to disgrace. In friendship, it can only lead to estrangement." Also, Zigong asked about friends. The master said, "Inform them loyally and guide them discreetly. If this fails, then desist. Do not court humiliation."
All people have faults, but you must consider the best way to address the faults of others. If you express your desires for the improvement of others in a way that is too negative and tactless, eventually this can only harm your relationships.
Zigong said, "What I do not want others to do to me, I have no desire to do to others." The master said, "Oh, Che, you have not quite gotten to that point yet."
Confucius, like the prophets and sages of other times and places, understood the golden rule. Why do you think it is that the great moral thinkers of antiquity all understood the world this way?
Rankyo said, "It is not that your way does not commend itself to me, but that it demands powers that I do not possess." The master said, "He whose strength gives out collapses in the pursuit of the way, but you deliberately draw the line."
The meaning of life is not a thing that you achieve. It is a direction that you set your life towards achieving. If you set your heart on pursuing what you were truly meant to do, but only half-heartedly, are you really pursuing it at all?
The master said, "I, for my part, am not one of those who have innate knowledge. I am simply one who loves the past and who is diligent in investigating it."
In this line, Confucius refutes the idea that he is a prophet or has some sort of supernatural gift. Confucius always maintained that what Confucius taught existed before him. All he did was collect, analyze, interpret, and promote the cultural knowledge that existed before him. Surely we can all learn from the wisest of our ancestors.
The master never talked about ghosts, supernatural powers, confusions of the mind, or supernatural beings. Also, there was a time when Zilu asked about how one should serve ghosts and spirits. The master said, "Until you have learned to serve men, how can you know how to serve ghosts?" Zilu then ventured to ask about the dead. The master said, "Until you understand the living, how can you understand the dead?"
In these sayings, Confucius denied that what he was teaching was religion. Rather, what Confucius taught was a moral philosophy that a person could follow and propagate regardless of their spiritual beliefs. One of the reasons that I enjoy the philosophy of Confucius is because our modern age is very similar to the age in which Confucius lived, in the sense that there is no dogma. Few people agree on what is supernaturally true, but the importance of living in an ethical society is just as important now as in the times of our ancestors.
The master said, "Do not enter a dangerous country. nor choose to live in one where the people have rebelled.
If you are a moral person, then you must ask yourself, who and what is my labor supporting? This is why I have chosen not to live in any place that is ruled by the Communist Party of China. I will not return to that land until this Gongfei Diguo collapses into dust and its people are released.
In the book of poetry it says, "The flowery branch of the wild cherry tree, how swiftly it flies back. It is not that I do not love you, but your house is far away." The master said, he did not really love her. If he did, he would not have worried about the distance.
This is the only time when Confucius talked about romantic love. At a deeper level, think of this as a metaphor for returning to one's original nature, their Bun Xing, which Confucian philosophy always says one must return to. If one really loved what was good, one would truly return to their original nature.
The wise man rises and goes at the first sign, and does not settle in a state until he has hovered. One time, Zhejiang asked how to cultivate virtue. The master said, to cultivate virtue, take loyalty and good faith as one's guiding principles, and migrate to places where virtue prevails.
If you have the ability to choose where you settle, choose wisely. Choose to live in a place where the people are kind and love doing what is right without coercion. Do not support an evil government with your labor.
Zagom said, when a wise man has spoken, a team of 4 horses cannot overtake his words.
Words have more power than people realize, either to harm others or oneself, or to work towards the meaning of life. Think carefully before you put that power into the world.
Duke Jing of Qi asked Confucius about government. Confucius replied, saying, "Let the prince be a prince, the minister a minister, the father a father, and the son a son." The Duke said, "How true! For indeed, when the prince is not a prince, the minister not a minister, the father not a father, or the son not a son, one may have a dish of millet in front of one, and yet not know if one will live to eat it."
People of all levels of society have their own proper obligations and responsibilities, and proper ways of achieving one's goals. When people cannot pursue their ambitions honestly, or cannot conduct their social obligations effectively, only a chaotic and disordered society can result.
The master said, "In judging disputes, I am as good as anybody else. What is necessary, however, is to influence the people to have no disputes."
Confucius understood that the goal of leadership is not merely in controlling behavior. You know you have done a good job leading the people when they change internally, and desire to do what is right without coercion.
The master said, "The wise man calls attention to the good points in others. He does not call attention to their faults. The small man does just the opposite." Also, Master Zheng said, "The wise man, by virtue of his cultivation, collects friends around him, and through these friends he promotes the good."
Confucius understood that spreading malicious gossip was a sign of bad character. If you have power, promote and surround yourself with people of good character. If you are in a lower position, find a place where people of good character exist. If people in an organization are never building each other up and only tearing each other down, it can only lead to chaos.
Zilu said, "If a prince of Wei were waiting for you to come and administer his country for him, what would be your first measure?" The master said, "It would certainly be to correct language." Zilu said, "Can I have heard you right? Surely what you say has nothing to do with the matter. Why should language be corrected?" The master said, How boorish you act. A wise man, when things he does not understand are mentioned, should maintain an attitude of reserve. If the words for things are not correct, language cannot communicate meaning effectively. If language cannot communicate meaning effectively, affairs cannot be carried on to success. Therefore, a wise man considers it necessary that the names he uses may be spoken appropriately, and also that what he speaks may be carried out appropriately. What a wise man requires is just that in his words, there may be nothing incorrect.
In Confucian philosophy, this is an important concept called the rectification of names. According to Confucius, in order for society to run smoothly, language must reflect the conditions of the objective world. The idea of using accurate speech is more important than ever in our modern age, when language is conscientiously manipulated by those in power to obfuscate the truth, propagandize convenient lies, and promote ideological subversion.
Someone said, "What do you say concerning the principle that injury should be responded to with kindness?" The master said, "In that case, how will you respond to kindness? You should respond to injury with justice, and respond to kindness with kindness."
Justice is both different and better than either vengeance or allowing unjust injury to occur, even to yourself. All people, by their nature, have an inclination towards justice. This inclination towards justice is a sign of people's inherently good nature. If you can, you should cultivate and pursue that inclination.
The master said, "To have faults and to be making no effort to correct them is to have faults indeed."
Confucius understood that perfection was impossible. What is more important is one's cultivation towards their goals. A wise person is constantly improving their faults and making progress to rectify their shortcomings.
The master said, "By nature, people are very similar, but by practice, they grow farther apart."
Confucius was talking about one's original nature, their bunshing. Confucian philosophy teaches that everybody has an originally good nature, but that by following their desires without reflection, people eventually fall into the habit of thinking and acting in an immoral way.
Did you enjoy our discussion of the words of our master Confucius, my friends? If so, leave a comment and let us know.